Here we have an overview of the digestive system of the horse as represented by rocks and strings. So we're going to start up here at the mouth, this stone. The mouth is responsible for receiving food, producing saliva, and some mechanical digestion. It contains structures such as the tongue, pharynx, larynx, and epiglottis. And one notable thing about the mouth of the horse is it's not used for respiration at all. Next we'll move down this black string, which represents the esophagus, which is a muscular tube that connects the mouth to the stomach. And it does that at the stomach by the cardiac sphincter. Next we have the stomach, this rose quartz. The stomach is responsible for secreting acid and enzymes to digest and turn food into chyme. It has three sections. The top is the fundus, the middle is the body, and the end piece down here would be the pyloric antrum. And that connects to the small intestine via the pyloric sphincter. Next we'll move on to the small intestine, which is represented in three parts. The duodenum, the first part, the jejunum is the middle section, and the ileum is the last section. Now, the duodenum is responsible for receiving chyme from the stomach and chemically digesting that chyme. And it does that using enzymes and secretions from the liver and pancreas, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Next, the jejunum, which is responsible for mostly just nutrient absorption, protein, lipid, carbohydrates. And then the ileum is responsible for mainly absorption of vitamin B12, the reabsorption of bile salts to be reused, and just anything else that wasn't absorbed from the jejunum. Next we'll move down. Here we have the cecum. The cecum is primarily responsible for fermentation. Horses are hindgut fermenters, so this is very, very important to their digestive process. Then we have the large intestine, or the colon. That is in a couple different parts. We have the ascending, the transverse, and the descending colon. The large intestine is mainly responsible for water absorption and formation of feces. And then down here we have the rectum, and the rectum is just responsible for feces storage before excretion via the anus, which is the very last part there. Next we'll move back up to the front of the horse, where we have the trachea represented by this red and white string, which is responsible for conveying air to the lungs, which is represented by these two pieces of quartz here. Fun thing about the trachea is that it's made of C-shaped cartilage rings that allow compression of it when the esophagus is expanded for food. And then we also have these strings here representing the phrenic nerves, which innervate the diaphragm and originate from the cranial 3 through 5 spinal nerves. It's important for breathing as it's the motor control for the diaphragm. And then represented here we have the heart, which sits right in the center of the chest cavity, which is just responsible for receiving and pumping blood throughout the body. Next we have the liver, represented here. The liver is responsible for filtering and detoxifying the blood and also producing bile salts. And another fun thing about the horse is they don't have a gallbladder like most mammals do, which would be responsible for storing the bile. And bile is responsible for breaking down and the digestion of fats in the small intestine. And that goes through the bile duct, which goes through the pancreas. And the pancreas has both endocrine and exocrine functions, but we'll focus on the exocrine functions for digestion, which is secreting enzymes and buffer into the duodenum to help neutralize the chyme from the acidic stomach and breaking down those carbohydrates and proteins. And then up here we also have the spleen. The spleen is part of the lymphatic system, which it filters the blood and stores platelets and white blood cells. And finally we'll move back down to the back of the horse, where we have the kidneys represented here. And the kidneys are responsible for filtering blood and removing any waste and extra water to maintain osmotic pressure. And they're connected to the bladder by these ureters. And the bladder is basically just responsible for storage of urine from the kidneys before it's excreted.